So thank you for joining us this afternoon for our next Commercial Basics class. I'm Philip Way with Way Realty Group, Commercial and Land Farm and Ranch Specialist here based in the Cedar Park Keller Williams office. We are going to be looking this afternoon at getting started in commercial real estate. Just a couple of highlights, some things that you need to do to prepare for a career in commercial real estate. Whether you have already been working in residential or whether you are brand new to the world of real estate, I want to show you the opportunities and the potential that exists. We get started, just a review and just a theme for the day is to plan the work and work the plan. You have to know what you're doing. You have to plan to do the work before you do the work. Consistency is over and over again. It doesn't seem to be getting results. But if you are consistent, these things will pay off. We're going to look at 3 features of getting started in commercial real estate: ramping up, what you need to know, and just a day activity for marketing and for lead generation. So as we start, we look at ramp as slow as it was in 2019. Still aren't there. We've seen everything drop. The time has dropped. The interest rates dropped. Now things are starting to correct a bit. They're starting to slow down a little bit, but it's still not slow. It's not bad. But when you look at your first year, when you look at the sales cycle for commercial real estate, it takes longer. You've got longer feasibility periods. A lease is probably going to be your quickest if you can find a property for your tenant, or if you're working to get a tenant for a landlord. Leasing seems to move a little more quickly than buying and selling. Land, of course, is moving quickly, but you have pretty long feasibility period, looking for your due diligence, looking for all of your development pre-planning, meetings with the city, permits, and all sorts of things. So because of that longer feasibility, which feasibility period in commercial world is the same as an option period in residential, that feasibility period can be anywhere from 14 days to 21 days to 30, 60, 90. We're going to be closing in September. It's had a 120-day feasibility period. So when you're looking at anywhere from 4 to 6 months to do due diligence, especially in the city limits, to figure everything out, that option period can go a long time. As a result, when you get started and you start to get your first deals in commercial, it's going to take time for those deals to close. So we always like to tell people to prepare. When you're ramping up, prepare that first year. I tell anybody that's getting into real estate, you need at least 6 months of living expenses in the bank. You need to be ready to live on savings, because it's going to be a while before you're actually up and generating income. In the commercial world, once you do start generating, what I've seen to be true with myself and with several other agents that I've worked with and mentored is that first year it takes you a while, and the third year you should probably double what you did. And then you get up to an operating budget to grow a team so that you can take on more volume. But your first year, you need to be looking for leads. You need to be making contacts. You need to feed your database. You need to be adding people. You need to be at networking events. You need to be taking commercial classes. You need to be under a commercial mentorship. Find an agent who is good at it. It for a while. Ask them to mentor you. Usually they will cooperate to do that. Of course, here in our market center, if you're making the transition to commercial real estate without any experience in commercial real estate, it's required for competency that you are mentored for your first by one of our commercial agents. But we offer that mentorship in the market center and outside of the market center, even for teams not KW associated, residential teams interested in learning the commercial side of the business. We're happy to teach that. There's plenty of business for people in the commercial world in this area right now. It takes that time of about 12 to 18 months to really ramp up and to get moving. So you need to be prepared for that. And there's 1 week around Williamson and Travis County. They'll be at different locations throughout different times, usually scheduled on the first Tuesday or the second Thursday of the month. I've got that schedule if you're interested for that. And a property exchange is where you can actually go and sit in a room with them on economic plans. You have a question and answer time, and then you get to the properties you have or the buyer needs that you have, and you share that with a room full of brokers, because you'll find out that you can do business faster face-to-face than trying to do things online, because as we'll look at in a minute, there is no standard commercial MLS. There is no standard place to go look for listings, and many commercial listings are not even marketed publicly. So it is by word of mouth, by connections in the broker community. It's a different atmosphere than the residential world. We really do have a lot of cooperation among the commercial agents in the area. You also need to know your budget, what you need to set aside for marketing, for building a website, for maintaining social media, for your signage. Signs will cost a little different because a commercial sign is usually going to be a piece of plywood, or it's going to be a 3x5 or a 4x8 that's going to be on a stand on not just a metal sign like you would see for a residential. We do use those signs for leasing and for smaller properties, for offices, but you're also going to be looking sometimes at $400 to $600 per sign to put your sign in front of a property. The good news is you can use that sign hopefully for your next listing. So you'll start small, but your business will grow year over year. That's the way to look at it. You also need to know what tools for the job. And I've got a picture here for you of the perfect tool. This is a French Army knife. You've heard of the Swiss Army knife that has a dozen or so different implements. And the French Army knife has only two. It has a wag and a corkscrew, because that's all the French ever seem to need. But you do need to have the right tools for doing the job. To do that, you need, of course, your database. You need a tech platform. You need some kind of a CRM. Some old school guys are still using spiral notebooks, legal notepads, Excel spreadsheets. There are platforms out there that are available. KW Commercial, of course, provides one for its agents, but you need a CRM, some way to track your business, to track your contacts, to reach out to them on a regular basis. Part of the lead generation class that I teach is how to regularly be in touch with your database. The difference, by the way, between commercial and residential, we've got almost a monthly touch plan where you're going to be reaching out and touching in some way your contacts multiple times throughout the year. You don't have to do that as often on the commercial side. Number one, you will annoy them. They have things to do. They have businesses to run. They usually will reach out to you if they need you. But it is good every once in a while just to send a text, send an email, drop them a card in the mail, do something just to maintain contact. It just doesn't have to be as often as you would with a residential database. You will also learn from your commercial database with a client. You'll usually have multiple transactions with a client. So work your database. If you can do the work without a tool, without a software CRM, in fact, what I encourage people to do is to start without the platform, start without the tools, because you need to know how to do the business if you don't have internet access. If you don't have access to these tools, you still need to know how to do the business. That way, the tool then just becomes an enhancement. It just makes the work easier. It becomes a multiplier for you to get more done. But we had something happen here recently where a set of one tech platform was turned off and another was turned on, and it's taking a while to learn the new platform, and you have to fall back on what you knew before you had the platform to continue in business without a bump. You also need to find a system that works to help you track the work, that helps you keep up with what you're doing. You need to track it. Whether this is a reporting mechanism or whether this is built into the CRM that you use, you need to know who's doing what stage it's at, where your feasibility ends. All of that needs to be loaded in your calendar, by the way. Once you've got a feasibility date, you know when the feasibility ends, when closing is going to be, all of that needs to be there so you're aware of it. Because if you do get into 4 to 6 month times, it's easy to lose track of what is due in, and things can slip by. Let me know that it was going to be expiring, and he knew it was expiring. He told everybody it was expiring. He needed to renew the listing, and he forgot. And a week later, the client reached out to me and said, hey, I can't get a hold of my agent. My listing's expired, and actually we were able to list it. So thankfully, the client was on top of it. But that could have been a dangerous situation. We could have lost a listing there if the client had not been on top. Provide that for you. They will take the contract and they'll provide the timeline, all that information. But even if they don't, you need to keep up with that so that you know when those times are, when they are extended, so that you're on top of it. You also need to know what commercial sites to use. As I said, there is no standardized commercial MLS. So we use CREXI, which is Commercial Real Estate Exchange, CREXI.com. There is LoopNet and CoStar, Brevitas by Proxy, Lands of Texas, LandWatch. These are just a few of the sites, but as you find out very quickly, there are different sites depending on the type of property that you're looking for. CREXI and LoopNet usually are the most comprehensive, but be aware that with CREXI, you can see everything that's listed. With LoopNet, if you're not a paid subscriber, you will only see about 20% of the active listings at any given time. So they bottleneck that information to try to get you to sign up and use their service. Sometimes it's worth it, sometimes it's not. Sometimes I think they need us more than we need them, but it's good just to know those commercial sites that are out there and to be familiar with how they work. You also need to know where to get news and information. News and information for the commercial world is available. Austin Business Journal, Inman News, Wall Street Journal. I start with all three of those, check all three of those daily, just to keep up with what's going on. You need to also know who are the economic forecasters, who's on the economic development boards for the cities that you serve and the areas that you serve, and watch their sites for updates, for blog posts, for what's going on in the world economically. I also let people know that if you're going to get into commercial, you're going to have to wear a lot of hats. This guy's got a lot of hats on. You're going to have to wear a lot of hats because there is no standard MLS. And this speaks to the culture of commercial real estate. Culture is much more professional. I'm actually dressed quite casually today, but that's because it's 100 degrees outside. And I don't know why it works this way, but it tends to work this way that on the days that it's 105 degrees, everybody wants to go see unair-conditioned warehouses. So you spend your time doing that, winter or summer, that's a challenge. But the culture is going to be much more professional. Usually not a lot of work on the weekends. There will be some just because it's real estate, but not much. Usually it is just business hours. Lenders and title company, of course, will be a little bit different because you'll have commercial title reps that are familiar with the processes and with the paperwork involved in doing those kinds of transactions. Another big difference that you'll see is it is very rare to find a commercial agent that has his picture or her picture on their cards and on their signs. That's a very personal thing with residential real estate. You want people to see you, you want people to recognize you, want people to know you. And while you are the brand in commercial, as you brand yourself, it's usually not done with pictures. That's just not considered professional to most people who are operating in that arena. Again, not all properties are listed publicly, so you need to know contacts. You need to know who specializes in what areas and what types of properties. We've talked about the different types of properties: hospitality, restaurants, office, industrial warehouse space, multifamily. You need to know who specializes in those areas so that you know who to contact if you have questions or if you're looking for a property for a tenant or for a potential buyer. So know who the experts are in those areas. And usually at the property exchanges, you learn very quickly who is, and you know who to ask questions, and they're usually pretty helpful. And if they can't provide an answer, they can point you to another agent or somebody else who can help. But we do have those property exchanges, lunches, classes, lunch and learns, events with the Chamber of Commerce, with the legislature, with the economic development boards. Plenty of those opportunities are out there to go and sit in and learn and teach. So database of realtors, know their area of expertise, and realtors like Wilco or ABOR, but for commercial realtors, an association, know what they've got going on, what CE classes are available, and that way you can take advantage of what is out there. Next, we're going to just look quickly at what you need to know. And you need to keep up to date. Here I am. I was actually interviewed on a local radio station with Carrie, our team lead here at the Market Center last year, and was able to give some insight on the commercial market. You need to know what to know because you need to keep up to date. You need to be the local expert in real estate. We tell people for the residential side, there are things to know. For the commercial side, there are things to know. There are different lending terms. There are different things you need to know about the interest rate. You need to know about trends. One of the trends to keep aware of, by the way, is to know that the residential, as it slows down a little bit, the commercial has not slowed down yet. It is probably going to a little bit, but not much in this area. There's so many people, so many businesses coming here. But you'll always find a lag. You will find that the commercial side will lag about 4 to 6 months behind residential. So whatever trends you see in residential, it will follow. Usually if residential dips, eventually commercial will dip, but it will not dip as far and it will recover faster. Again, because there are businesses and people have to work and have to get a job done. So usually with a business, you don't have the luxury of staying in the same place 7 to 9 years. If your lease is coming up or you need to renegotiate or terms have gotten too high, then you're going to have to make a move within 3 to 5 years. So it's a that information. You need to be familiar with the city zoning and development. If yourself are new and working in an area, get to know who the people are in the city that you need to talk to, and they'll answer your phone and talk to you. Because that's going to be the first question that I answer. If you're looking for a property to buy for a business, you know, can that business be done in that property? And that's all about zoning. If it's outside the city limits, if it's in the ETJ, the extraterritorial jurisdiction of a city, but not in the city limits or just out in the county, you're not going to have zoning issues unless there are deed restrictions. So you also need to, outside of the city limits, also check deed restrictions so that you're aware of what can and cannot be done with the property. Be familiar with property tax rates. They vary. Astounding. I don't know some of the charge what they do for property taxes now, but you need to be familiar with that just by region. And you need right now, of course, it is down south out toward Tesla. It is up north in Taylor with the Samsung development. It is up 35 Gerald toward Waco and Temple, up that direction. It is out. In fact, the last 3 land deals I've done now have been on the other side of Lampasas. So things are moving out toward the hill country. Pretty soon, journalist great. Keep up with those. Those 2 have been the most reliable sources of information to tell you where to find what you need to find about what's on an area. You also need to realize that it's not what you, but it's who you know in commercial real estate. You need to know appraisers, and here's how that works. By trying to get listings, commercial land, commercial buildings, and usually because there's not a standardized MLS and because the sales data is not put out there on the MLS, appraisers have a much more difficult time with commercial property than a resident determining value when they're trying to work. So they will call you if you have had listings in that area, if you've done business in that area, they've seen your sign, they walk around, they take pictures, clients for them just to be helpful. And if you're helpful with the appraisers and give them somebody about what they see, because they're going to be touching that we are. So if they know I'm working in an area and I've got a relationship with them and I'm getting ready to list property, I can run my comps by them just to see what they think, to see if they think that that's a good idea. But it's just good to have that professional opinion to work with. You need to know inspectors. Commercial inspections are different than residential inspections. Commercial lenders are different, of course, than your resident lenders. Title company also will have different reps that work specifically with commercial, with documents and forms and transactions. You need to know attorneys. You probably will eventually get sued. You need that. You need to have an attorney that you know that can. You compare a residential lease to a commercial lease and just look at what's required, and it's easy to get in quickly if you don't know what you're doing. So know an attorney. You also need to know general contractors and civil engineers and architects, people who are out there doing the work, doing the building, who can give you estimates for timelines. Everybody keeps throwing around ag because of supply, but it's not taking as long to build commercial. You see that as you see commercial buildings going up around the area. They don't waste any time getting those buildings up. So you need to talk to general contractors who work on commercial buildings, and they're a good source of information. We also need to know forms promulgated. I'll show you a slide here in a minute of just a sample of the commercial forms, because there are commercial forms for buying, for selling, and for leasing, for the landlord, for the tenant, for every aspect of a transaction, just like you'd have for residential. You representation agreements, listing agreements, contracts, amendments, addendums, a letter of intent, which if you've not taken my course on forms, a letter of intent we'll use before we fill out a contract. And it's a non-binding letter that just says, here's the terms to offer to open negotiations, and forth and marked it up, redlined it. You will sometimes initial contract where it comes back and it's just an absolute mess because of all the changes. We do all of that beforehand with a letter of intent, so that by the time we get to the contract, it's usually one clean document and it's not confusing and there's not marks all over the place and initials all over the place, because that just makes it more complicated than it needs to be. There are also different forms for improving unimproved property and farm and ranch. And if you don't know the difference, unimproved property, zoned commercial, or that can be used for commercial, is different than a farm and ranch contract. A farm and ranch contract is going to be typically 10 acres or more, and it might be residential, might be commercial, might be not zoned. This is 15 of the most common forms that we use, and this is just 15. There are pages and pages of commercial forms that you have to learn, that you have to know. You've got a commercial buyer tenant, a commercial real estate listing agreement with an exclusive right to lease or an exclusive right to sell. You have an exclusive right to a sublease, and that is interestingly too, if somebody's in a space and they've got to get out of a space and they want to sublease a space, then you're actually landlord for a new sublessor, and there are multiple moving parts and multiple forms everybody in that transaction has to fill out. There are commercial contracts for unimproved and improved property. There is the financing addendum, amendments as typical to the listing or amendments to the contract. If it is condoed, if there are common areas and fees that are involved, you will have to fill out a commercial condominium addendum that shows what those fees are, what they go to pay for, who's responsible for what. Commercial property statement, that's just like a seller's disclosure for property. A little more specific though, just because of the nature of commercial business and what might have been done with the property environmentally. You have a commercial contract date list, amendments, lease applications, a commercial list. I would encourage you, get into DocuSign, get into dotloop, and just look at a commercial lease inventory and condition statement. They need to go through the property and mark and notate the condition of the property so that when they move out, the land is that to justify if anything has to be done with a security deposit. Finally, we're going to look at daily activity, just things that you need to be doing every day. First, you need to be marketing yourself. You need to realize that you are the brand. I'm a member of KW Commercial because I'm a member of Keller Williams, but KW Commercial for me is not the brand. It's a designation to show that I do specialize in commercial business. I'm also a member of KW Land, so I do that as well with farm and ranch and with residential and commercial land. But you are the brand, so you need to market yourself. You are what you're marketing. Your service that you can do is what you are marketing. Listings, of course, provide visibility and market share. You need your signs all over the place. People need to see your signs. I love it when I get a new sign on a new, I have a couple of agents that will always text me or give me a call and say, hey, I saw your new sign, tell me about the property, and they want to find out what's going on. But listings provide visibility and they provide market share. It's the same thing in a residential neighborhood, by the way. If you're driving through a big business, but if you see that same filter in front of multiple properties, you know that they're probably a neighborhood expert. They'll know who you are and where you are. You can promote your listings and your needs on the commercial MLS sites that we've talked about. And there are also a couple of area email lists. One is for all the states of Texas, one is for Dallas, Fort Worth, one's for Houston, one's for, and got almost 4,000 brokers. So every night gets sent through the list to everybody on the email list. I actually created a separate Gmail account for that because you get so many emails from this many agents with all their listings. It's just as bad as the stuff comes to your regular email from the MLS and from ABOR. But there are so many like that. The good news is if you do that with a separate email account, then you can go in a couple times a week and just run searches for the properties you're looking for and find out who's got what and what is available. You also need to be present, be responsive, answer your phone. This is a big deal in the commercial world. People gripe all the time that agents don't answer their phone. Yes, we are busy, but answer your phone, call people back, text them, and let them know you're going to call them back. And what I say, I tell people you need to be present, not pushy. You need to be present. People need to know you're there, be top of mind, but don't be a pushy car salesman type of agent that puts people off. Maximize your exposure. People need to see you everywhere. So diversify. Don't just focus. We will residential agents, of course, you want to take whatever business comes your way, but we'll tell you to farm specific neighborhoods, pick a territory, pick an area, and work in that so you're not all over creation. Commercial, we want to tell you, diversify yourself. If you're not a specialist, learn to do multiple types of properties. And as you learn to do those, get your sign out all over the place. Again, it just increases visibility and awareness for the business that you're doing. So I say, here's your sign. You need to get your sign in front of as many properties as possible. Get your sign out there. There are times I've taken listings that I didn't want to take only because I knew the sign placement was going to be awesome. And I've had a few of those that have generated more business from sign callers than from the actual business itself that we were trying to represent. So be aware that your job is to market yourself. You are the brand. So get that information out there. We always also talk about lead generation for commercial. If you want to lead generate for commercial, and this is where we tell people to start, you need to be lead generating for commercial. Even if you decide you don't want to be a commercial realtor, because you have a real estate license, you can refer that business to a commercial agent for a 25% or so referral fee. And that can be huge on a commercial transaction. Oh, anyway, the commercial agents that I know and that I work with, and the way that we do that is if you refer to us a commercial client, it is not just a one-time referral fee. Every transaction that client does, you get a referral fee off of, because you have been our lead generator to connect us to that client for that business. If you want to learn the business, we're happy to walk with you through it and teach you how to do commercial. At our market center, it's required that you have a mentor for 1 year and that your first 3 transactions be overseen. specifically by your mentor, so that there's a little bit bigger split to do that, so that you're learning the business, just to make sure, again, that you're competent. But once you're up and running, you will decide very quickly whether you like doing commercial transactions or not. It is a different mindset. It's more legal. It takes longer. You have to be more detail oriented. In fact, usually when you look at residential realtors and you see their strengths, their 80-20, the things that they're good at, usually that's why they hire an admin. That's why they hire a transaction coordinator, because they're not good with the contracts. They're not good with the details. They're not good with the timelines. They're good at getting in front of people and working with people. On the commercial side, you're a financial advisor. It is details, it is numbers, it is investment, it is strategy. And if you like those kinds of things, you'll love it. If you don't, you'll hate it. So if you hate it, don't turn it away. It's still a stream of income for you if you uncover commercial business to hand that off and to refer that off to a commercial agent. Got several residential agents that we've got that kind of a relationship. They will send me commercial business. I will send them residential referrals, so that we share it that way. It's easy to lead generate in the commercial world because most everybody that you know has a job or works somewhere. Lots of people have been working from home lately. Now people are getting back out into the workspace. They're returning to offices. Leases are needing to be renegotiated for commercial lease space. There's a lot of building, a lot of office space going up. So there's a lot of activity on the commercial side. So as you talk to people, realize every company that leases space will outgrow it, or they'll need to downsize, or they will be at some point ready to even buy their own building. Have conversations with property owners, with company owners that you know, and even people who work for a company. Find out where they work, find out where your friends work, where their office is, whether it's leased or not, and just make yourself a resource for them, because lease renewals can be negotiated. It's not automatic. When that lease term comes up, it can be renegotiated with an agent, and we recommend that, of course, so that the terms don't change too drastically. If you know new investors, new businesses, owners, people who are starting new business, who have always talked about owning their own business, have them talk to a commercial realtor. We can help lay out a plan for a timeline, for investment strategy, for development costs, so that they can actually make that more of a reality than just a dream of one day I would like to do this. You also need to know prospects that are looking for land, office space, retail, industrial, multifamily, everybody these days. And if you know who they are and are responsive to them and connect them to a professional commercial agent, we can build some good, strong relationships there in all of these segments, because these are all in demand in our area right now. You also have residential buyers who might be looking for a home because they need a new home office. Well, the question is, where do they work, and do they happen to need more space than the home office allows? So do they need space to lease? Could they use a small office or even a large office where multiple people can all lease it together and share space? All of that's happening in our market right now. Talk to people at church, at convenience stores, at gas stations, at retail stores, at restaurants. In fact, any business that you go into is a gold mine for leads. Go into business, talk to business, talk to the people behind the counters, talk to the managers at restaurants. Had this happen where we were out with a couple of realtors for lunch one day, and one of the realtors at the table called the manager over and just asked about the restaurant, about the space, if they had any expansion plans. And it turns out that they had just had a company-wide meeting. They were going to open a new restaurant, and we were able to then help them plan and represent them in purchasing a new location for a new restaurant. So you never know where those conversations are going to go, but you have to be talking about these things. Express an interest in people's business, because that's expressing an interest in them. And when you do, then you will find out that you have people who are willing to talk to you and listen to you. Of course, you're presenting yourself as an expert. Talk about it to you as a resource, and they will trust you with their business, with all that they've got going on. That's actually the end of the slideshow. So the only other real thing that I need you to be aware of if you're looking at getting started in commercial real estate is that it's going to take time. It's going to be frustrating. It's going to be different. You're going to get asked things that you have no clue, even what they're asking, much less how to find the answer. That's why you need a commercial agent to work with you, to help you, somebody who's been through that, who's been doing it for years. And as you prove yourself a resource, you will find that you have a second income stream. And it either will be an income stream through referrals or through space. Right now in Austin, Texas, something you're probably not doing good in the residential side either. But as things are challenging, as the market is shifting, as things slow down, as interest rates are on the rise, it's not putting that big a damper on the commercial side. People are still looking. In fact, the only real struggle, the only true struggle right now on the commercial side is that cities have not been planning for the growth that's coming, and they don't have the infrastructure in place to support the new businesses that are coming. So we're waiting on cities to get the water, to get the sewer, to get the streets, to get the infrastructure done, to get the zoning settled so that businesses can open. There is a waiting list of businesses waiting to come. You know that, and you know where to look, and you know where the infrastructure is. You can look where to plan for their business. And as you then become that resource, you become that contact, and business owners talk to business owners. When you take care of them, they will refer their friends to you. To the point that if you do a good job as a commercial agent, transactions, just because of the price difference and because of what a commercial offers. So don't think consistent in doing it and applying yourself to it, whether it's residential or commercial. Some people do both. We call that I just decided to focus. And you will soon be in business because you're getting referrals, because you're taking care of your clients. And that makes life easy. That makes it, by the way, commercial is a lot less dramatic, a lot less emotional, because it is, at the end of the day, about the numbers. Do the numbers, about even on the inspection reports, that's negotiable, and it all comes down to the bottom line, to the numbers. If you're good at the details, like serving clients in a commercial arena all together, some of them continuing to work both, but it's a good, please feel free to reach out to me and let me know. You can call me 512-537-7110. You can email me pmway at kw.com. And as always, we're glad here at the Market Center to help. Tell her whether or not working consistently, your business will